not perfect either, can share our faith with a friend in all our weakness, in the midst of all the stress that's happening in our lives, then it will be crystal clear that it is God who changes your friend's life and not you. God working His strength through our weakness is precisely the point of you and I being in mission where we are. And it's also the point of crossing borders to be in mission in other countries. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have the chance to hear more about how you and I can be involved in strengthening bodies and lives in places like the Dominican Republic. When you and I, whether overseas or here in Oxnard, sit next to someone in our own weakness, just as we are, and share our faith and life with them, it becomes clear that the comfort we bring and the good news we share is not just a story we're making up, but that it is the true gospel from God. Go to any archaeological site, and you could spend all day bending over to pick up pottery shards or fragments. Clay pots in those days were used as long as possible, and then when they broke, they were trashed. Ancient dumps had no plastic and very little glass. It was almost all clay pottery. And so Paul uses the common image of jars of clay to describe those who carry the gospel message. Frail, weak, common, nondescript, fragile containers. You and I are special, all right, because God made us. But we're not kings and queens. We're not royal people. We're just regular people. But we're called to carry the gospel so that it is the gospel that gets noticed and not us. Power through weakness is a huge theme in the 2 Corinthian letters. Why? Because the greatest danger to human existence and progress is pride. God deliberately entrusts the gospel to weak vessels to show that the power and the boasting belongs to Him and not to us. We in ourselves, well, we're special, but we're nothing to boast about because we have all these faults and cracks and problems. But the gospel we carry, the message of knowing Jesus, now there's something to talk about. To get the power through weakness message across in today's text, Paul employs 4 paradoxes. And a paradox is an apparent contradiction. 4 paradoxes, no doubt taken from his own life experience. We are hard-pressed on every side but not crushed. That's number 1. Perplexed but not in despair. That's number 2. Persecuted but not abandoned. That's number 3. Struck down but not destroyed. Paradox number 4. In the first paradox, hard-pressed on every side but not crushed, Paul writes that we are pressed in and almost trapped sometimes by circumstances, by life, by what goes on in our world. And for him this was true, but at the same time, we're not crushed. God allows it to go just so far but no farther. In other words, we live our lives under pressure, but by God's grace we don't implode. Paul in his weakness was under constant pressure. How many of you have pressure-filled lives, like our friend here on the screen? Yet the gospel message for Paul and the Spirit prevented him from being crushed. In your pressure-filled life, do you know that you have that inner strength? And do you know that it's not you, but it's only Him? And do you know that those who serve you in the church are the same way? Your pastor, your office staff, all the staff here, all the leaders here, the elders, the deacons, all of us live life on the edge. We're under pressure. We're weak. And sometimes the only reason we don't implode or explode is because of Jesus working inside of us through his Spirit. In the second paradox, Paul says that he is perplexed, but not in despair. In other words, at a loss, yet not totally lost. Stressed, yet not distressed. Cracked pots, but not crackpots. You see the difference? The pressure Paul is under created mental stress, like our friend here with a small brain. Paul confesses to being often confused, at a loss, not knowing which way to turn or what to do. Yet despite being confused, he does not despair. Despite being at a loss, he never feels totally lost. Returning to the image of fragile pottery, Paul is a cracked pot, but not a crackpot. Only the glorious good news and the Holy Spirit keep him mentally sound. How about you? What is it that keeps your stress from getting out of hand? It's okay to be a cracked pot. It's okay to be a broken vessel. But please talk to someone and talk to God before you go over the edge. And that's serious business. And know, as a Christian, that first of all, you have a bigger brain than Homer. But beyond that, you've got the Holy Spirit besides, which makes all the difference in the world. In the third paradox, Paul writes that he is persecuted, but not abandoned. In other words, exiled, yet not alone. A huge part of the pressure Paul is under comes from his opponents. Despite bringing people good news, he's often rejected and chased out of town. Paul grew up in two great cities, Tarsus and Jerusalem, but he's got no home in the book of Acts and as he writes his letters. His calling from God is to go from city to city, not knowing whether he'll be welcomed, arrested, or banished. Yet wherever he lays his head at night, he knows that he's under the care of a sovereign and powerful God. Whenever you feel afraid or alone, know that God is with you. Even when you don't feel it, God is with you.